This real side experience would begin with a scene in which vast numbers of humans were participating in a race seemingly. For indeed, all beings are going through the creational process. All are progressing through the body types until a body form is taken on where free will is granted, that of the ability to utilize the body vehicle mechanics to generate ideas, as opposed to the body forms being animated directly by the real awareness, and where every action then makes sense with life. The free will utilizing will be the emergence then of the secondary self, the personal self, and as the personal self takes precedence, the real awareness nowness somewhat disconnected from and forgotten, so the individual remains encased as its creation until such a time as the real awareness decides to recognize the years it is a part of, as is the real purpose of the simulators. And as the personal self is reacquainted with the true reality of that which animates through it, so then is afforded the comparison between the personal self and all experiences it has a free will generated, and the real awareness isness everything position, a comparison that allows recognition of the ears. An overall process that all beings are going through, that as it proceeds, so will a consciousness be continuously added to and compounded with a distortion of idea agreements and attachments as the lifetimes are amassed. So this will bring the simulator through its degradation cycles, and generally it can be expected that the point where beings will recognize the ears will be overwhelmingly during these final simulator stages, as it takes a lot of experience to even reach the moment where the real awareness decides to recognize the true reality it is a part of. We might say then it is a race against time, although time being as illusory as any other idea in creation, the experience we have at any given moment is simply that which through our agreements are our body forms, that decode the agreement ideas into a simulation creationally placed accordingly. If my agreements, my consciousness programs, are that which affect what we consider as the current era of humanity's experience, then this will be my position in creation as afforded via my body vehicle, and I would construe it from the personal perspective as the present, etc. And so, if I and a species have the experience of operating at a point where the simulator is on the verge of implosion, this reveals the consciousness I and the species have that present this as the affected experience through the body forms. Everything is present in the nowness of the ears, but the view and experience we have, the part of the everything we operate in within creation, is according to ourselves. Our positioning in life reflects that which we are, the consciousness design, our intent, etc. But from a literal perspective, yes, we rather have to get through the creational process and recognize the ears before we are caught in the simulator implosion, and should we not make it out before this occurs, then we have to be positioned in another simulator until a recognition of the ears is achieved. On the real side, this is often represented as a race. I have witnessed this creational process demonstrated in this way also, where those participating are not competing against each other, unless they take on such an attitude and a mind consideration, but more so a race against illusory time, in reality a race against themselves, the limitations and restrictions they hold to, that dictates the pace by which they can progress with their awareness of processes. As I said in the beginning, the vast numbers of those involved in the race would be humans, as though suggesting the potentiality of great swathes of humanity stepping up at some stage, embarking on their awareness of processes, and participating in the race against the simulator deterioration clock. A positive sign, to be sure, as humanity are a species very much suppressed by the dark forces, and a monumental effort indeed will it be, for what impressions revealed were the majority of humanity, to see through the indoctrination mind-framed, reptilian-managed, overall human consciousness to the reality of their real awareness, true being selves. But this was the situation, and I would be among the multitudes of humans and taking the opportunities to afford them encouragement and support as they required it. For a number of them would recognize me as the individual who had produced the various YouTube videos referencing the ALLLISS, etc. For it is so that regardless of our position in life, the extent of our own awareness, we will endeavour to assist all beings and body types to the very last moment. For a number of experiences have I shared where, even though DUANE has a recognition of the ears and can extricate himself from creation at any moment, he would remain in the simulator to its last dying moment in a continuing effort to assist all those he was able. And so it was that I would be running with humanity. The scenes and environments we were traversing through were a suitable representation of how dismal a simulator overall can become as it nears its implosion. For we were racing through a gloom, darkness, dank passageways, and as though dilapidated, foul-smelling sewage systems. I have mentioned the potential possibility of a complete consciousness overhaul, that as the simulator is the consciousness affected, change the consciousness and you alter the simulator, where it can be so that the epoch cycles can even be thrown into a reverse. And although this remains as a possibility, so every other agreement idea are as a consciousness installed possibilities also, all present in isness reality terms, all in effect now in actuality, but through the creational mechanics what we experience are the idea agreements held to at any given moment, and in this real side experience would be the situation, a potential future view, where the simulator continued to spiral towards its implosion, but a testament to DUANE's efforts on the earth, that the heavily suppressed species that are humanity overall had woken up and had embraced their awareness of processes, and running the race to get through creation before simulator implosion. In a scene that followed, unrelated to what I have just recounted, I would be approaching a group of humans, and they seemed to be absorbed in a black magic orientated practice of some kind. I'm uncertain who these individuals were, they were unfamiliar to my personal self, and very apparent was it as to the dubious idea agreements they were taking on through that which they were indulging themselves with. For the individuals were sat in a line and were chanting all manner of nonsensical utterings, and as they proceeded, they all would become progressively engulfed in darkness. They were making contact with beings from the lower astral as impressions revealed, and as they extended open agreement with the twisted body types that lurk in an equally as abysmal creational position, as our consciousness and life choices will always mirror the body forms we operate through, and where we find ourselves creationally placed. So this was a tantamount to allowing the lower astral based beings to remove them from the physical to the lower astral, and whatever unsavoury fate awaited them there. For as powerful and capable as a being may be, everything that his created consciousness and body form is, are ideas, including his intent. These ideas then, including his intentionality, can only impact my experience if I transfer these ideas to my consciousness, and where I then experience the effects of doing so. In this case, these humans were consciously opening themselves up to these lower astral demons and creatures, though perhaps unrealizing of all the idea agreements they were taking on. For as we agree with a surface simulated idea, always there are other ideas attached, including the consciousness of the one that created the ideas, and we will then be taking on far more than we bargained for. This, in fact, is how the Dark Force reptilians can have individuals agree to being controlled, as this is the reptilian intention infused with the reptilian consciousness that is inseparable from the Dark Force created surface idea that has appeal and is agreed with. But unbeknownst to the agreeable human, they take on this overall bundle of control acceptance, and this then is their effected experience as shared with the reptilians. These black magic practitioners were as though besotted with the idea of making contact with the demons from the lower astral, that they may have bestowed upon them greater powers. But in reality they were deceived, formulating the agreement contract with the lower astral based nasties that they could be sequestered from the physical, and very likely then at the mercy of these ill-intended body types. Although I couldn't prevent what was taking place, as nowhere in the agreement effecting movies of these humans was a role I could assume as provided by them where I could be in an intervention capacity, as the extent of our impact into the affairs of others is strictly according to their decided dictates and parameters. I did instead elect to join them, though instead of partaking in their lower astral connecting chanting, I would sing the DUANU song, as every situation and experience is an opportunity to share the true reality sound connection. The DUANU sound is particular that it is relatively untainted by any ideas of creation. It references the true reality. As such, it is a vibration that is unlike any other you will find in creation, and in fact is abrasive to those who operate in very controlling and restricting and abrasive ways, as it is such the contrast to the distorted frequencies they wallow in. As such, singing the DUANU can repel many ill-intended beings and body types, and as I sang the new you in this situation, it was dispelling the ever-growing darkness that was engulfing the group and somewhat ruining their lower astral connecting endeavour, to the extent that although they had been welcoming of me joining them initially, as I had effectively shut down their ceremony, and even though it was for their benefit, as they didn't seem to realise the members of the group were being lower astral kidnapped one by one, so unaware were they as to the effects they were exacting for themselves, they would demand that I leave. I would shrug and do so, and they would resume with their chanting, their choice then to reap the effects of extending agreement to the twisted denizens of the lower astral, and however that would play out for them. A few of the black magicians would actually elect to attack me, and I would be defended by a heavy-set man who manifested into the scene, impressions suggesting that whoever he was operating in a protective capacity of myself, and was very adept and capable of handling the magicians. Although my personal self had no recognition of him, the sense was that he had assisted me on many occasions during my real side activities. But of everything that we experience on the real side, we only can bring back fragments generally, and although this is the first time my personal self had been shown this particular protector in action, impressions suggested he was a guide assigned to watch my back, and had been doing so for a while, and interjecting himself on my behalf on many an occasion, as I said. He would promptly vanish, his work done, and I would wander off into an open countryside setting where suddenly a tendril, though one comprising of an almost tree-like texture, would snare my ankle, wrap around my leg, and begin to drag me to, presumably, toward that which the tendril belonged to. I would never see whatever particular body form this was, for just like the unexpected intervention by the heavy-set man earlier, so would another group of body forms intervene on my behalf. They would in fact be what impressions revealed were fairies, diminutive body types in relation to my human form, but endowed with magical ability, and they would zap at the tendril binding my limb with little magical fireballs, until the tendril relented, released me, and slithered back to where it had emanated from. The fairy beings would vanish, deciding that they would also assist me, and I always delight in experiencing species and body forms my personal self never has encountered before. Although I had been liberated from my predicament, the tree-like tendril had afflicted me through a contact, and I had taken on a taint, as it were. I've shared on previous real side experiences that through my real side activities and assignments, that I can inadvertently take on certain effects that, if not identified, and the ideas that they are released, so these can translate through as physical level body form ailments. There were a succession of real side experiences where if the ideas I had trawled, like mud that sticks to our boots, hadn't been removed, I actually may have experienced severe physiological alterations to my very body form that, although not necessarily debilitating, may not be very conducive. Try operating on Earth among humans as a body form that would be construed as very monstrous in comparison to your average human. which through the situations as a consequence wouldn't exactly be an aid to the focus required for the awareness process. Difficult would it be for me to edit videos while having a horde of Mexicans at the door with flaming torches and pitchforks. In this case, I had taken on another mutagen type effect, which was converting my body type on the real side into that which had snared my leg, that which I only saw but one tendril of. The overall form was one that loosely resembled a kind of mobile tree, like a form of a tree ant, though hideously distorted, more a trunk that afforded mobility, and then the bulk of the form comprising of a mass of branch-like dexterous tendrils. I would actually enter the room in the ranch, which is the sleeping area of Jeremy. Jeremy would be present, and as I squeezed my now considerable bulk inside, and rather occupied a third of the room, Jeremy would ask jokingly as to what mess I'd got myself into now. But like all distortions, malaises, and body form altering mutagens we take on, they only are retained according to the idea agreements which effect them. Really a case then of identifying the idea cause and releasing it. For impressions revealed the possibility that just with the other previous real side experiences involving these form-altering effects inadvertently trolled, that if the idea cause was not released, my physical level body form could be altered accordingly. Although I couldn't say for certain as to what extent, if indeed I would turn into a kind of twisted walking tree creature, and so I had the further impression this malaise was being taken care of. The real awareness tends handle all the particulars, assuming the personal self doesn't interfere with the conflicting agreements that neutralize the real awareness's ability in regards to the safeguarding of the real side simulation inserted body forms, etc., and the handling and mitigating of the physical level ramifications. In a scene that followed, I would be invited to a vast laboratory complex, boasting extreme levels of sci-fi-like technology and sophistication. The various scientists present were those that were actually operating in life and awareness beneficial capacities, as that which they were doing, their research and science activities, were that which were in alignment with the galactic projects, saving the Earth, overall as a beneficial for the simulator, etc. That recently have I shared on real side experiences that through the process of awareness, as the limitations, as expressed through the idea agreements of the consciousness, are faced and released, so the new friends, and all those on their awareness processes, can expect to become more limitless and boundless on the physical, just as they operate as on the real side. And here, in this scientific complex, the scientists were as though formulating methods by which this could be accelerated. For the consciousness and its programming is very much like that of a computer. We release certain idea files, so that which is effected on the screen alters in accordance. As we release the ideas of the consciousness, so our effected experience is that of being more limitless on the physical. These scientists then had the technological genius to make alterations to any consciousness through computers the individual could be hooked up to, simply a case of deleting, erasing, or reordering certain files or ideas, That effected is that which are more advantageous circumstances, a little like tweaking your body form effected from consciousness through a technological means. The scientists would delight in demonstrating the results of their work, as they had subjected themselves to their own experimentation, and were able to perform all manner of what would be construed as a supernatural ability, or rather ability that was made possible by removing the agreements that limited such to be. All the scientists were humans, and quite the array of geniuses, as I said. I would reveal my own abilities, though abilities made possible via the real awareness which can animate its body forms in any way necessary for any eventuality, the real awareness only limited by the personal self and the agreements as yet to be released by it, etc. I would proceed to warp through the walls, alter my outer form, assuming many different body types, and float around the lab as though on invisible wings. As I said, the scientists were sincere. Their work would have beneficial life applications, although the details regarding exactly in what way wasn't made apparent, and perhaps these scientists, who were Earth-based physical level individuals, may make themselves known at some point, as all were on their own respective processes of awareness. I had the sense that their work was connected in some way to our galactic endeavours, as further evidence that the scientists were operating in ways that conflict with the controllers, as the controllers desire to have all consciousness moulded to agreement which serves and maintains their controlling positions, and any idea that threatens to undermine their control, so they will be swift to interfere, disrupt, shut down or destroy within the parameters that agreements with all involved allow. So it was that the science complex would be invaded by reptilians. They would be your typical two-legged, tailed and green-scaled variety. They all possessed heads that resembled those of lizards, and all dressed in what looked like military battle armour. They very swiftly would take possession of the lab and round up all the human scientists, installing their own reptilian scientists and forcing the humans to work alongside them, that they could turn what was to be a beneficial project into a mechanism of control. For they intended to use the science as created by the humans in conjunction with their own to bring into existence a kind of human reptilian hybrid, that although already have they done this in many ways, splicing many different species for various purposes, the impressions were that the hybrids they could create through the genius of the human scientists, now forced to work with them, would be of a particular that would serve their insidious controlling agendas even more so in regards to the Earth, though exactly in what capacity wasn't made apparent. They would wield out one of their creations, as though time had passed since the takeover, and the combined efforts of the reptilians and human scientists now was yielding results. What emerged from what appeared to be a kind of incubator cubicle was the deceased actor John Pertwee, and although it was visually apparent as to the human's identity, the human part of John was amalgamated with the reptilian form. The face, as an example, was half John, half scaled and lizard-like. This seemed pleasing to the reptilians, as though this is exactly the outcome they desired. their ability seemingly to bring any human as though back from the grave, or more likely a cloning procedure combined with reptilian genetics, which effected as the ability of the reptilians to produce any human reptilian hybrid, regardless of they having transitioned or not, for whatever reason they would have for doing so. For indeed, the resurrected John Pertwee was very apparently half reptilian, as I said. Regardless, I would remove myself from the scene, having to nullify a number of military reptilians that challenged me as I departed the complex of laboratories. It was uncertain if the beneficial project the human scientists were working on was now lost, or if it could be in some way salvaged or continued elsewhere, if it was indeed as important as impressions suggested it was, and what would come of this new reptilian project remained to be seen. The creation of these curious, though very apparent hybrids, and what purpose they might serve. But regardless, the experience would end there.